Hello, my name is Dan from Sturkits Automated System Solutions. We can be found at www.sturkits.com, and I'm going to be doing a presentation of the CCQuilter automation software system, and we're going to get started right now with a full install. If you've unzipped and downloaded and unzipped it, you've unzipped it to a folder such as CCQuilter install. We're going to go in there. There's some instructions you can read. The instructions talk about the double-click setup. If you get an error, it's already installed, please uninstall it. And that's pretty much it. Self-explanatory. So we're going to do a setup. And it's going to ask me for which it cannot be verified. Click install anyways. And the first thing that's going to happen is, once it's completed installation, it brings up the application. Now this is the main window for the CCQuilter. First thing you're going to notice is this little question mark down here. If you double click on it, it brings up a window that gives you a quick start guide. So you can read through this at your leisure if you want. Double clicking on the message or single clicking on the message box and
closing message box.
So the entire work surface can be changed and edited and grown and shrunk to whatever you like. To connect to the hardware, you would kick.
Connecting to hardware.
And it said it
could not connect to hardware.
Simulation mode, which is where most of this demonstration is being done. So, looking at the screen, the primary areas here are the new. To create a new workspace, this opens an existing workspace, saves a workspace, saves as to a different file, and exit to exit the program. Excuse me. So, the first thing we're going to do is
creating new workspace.
Now, a workspace is a series of forms and a patterns, utilities file collector. So you can save a workspace, it'll save all your settings. If you've noticed, I can move the screens around and things may or may not move with it. That's because the emergency stop button has been docked to the form. Currently it's not. When it docks, it can dock to the left and right, dock to the bottom. Same thing with the workspace form. And we can keep dragging things around. So you can move and resize things as you want. So what I've done is created a new workspace, and I'm going to add a pattern to it. Now there are two different selections here. There's PU, which is patterns and utilities. Clicking on it, you show the patterns and you show the utilities. So I'm going to add a pattern. It brings up the open window. I'm going to go to my desktop, which is where I put the install packets. And in there, there's an examples file, and I have an example in there of a pattern. This is a pattern in CCQuilter format, and I've just added that to my patterns list. Now, the sorting here, if you create a quilt with a number of passes, say 10 passes, and you label them pass 1 through 10, there is no sorting. The order you put them into this list box is the order it's going to be seen in. So if I click on it now, you'll be able to see what the pattern looks like here in the main display. And again, you can grow and shrink all this stuff at will. But that's what the pattern looks like. There's a checkbox here that'll tell you that it's been uploaded to the hardware. If you notice right now it's red. If I click someplace else, you'll see it's red. It means it has not been run. If I select it and click toggle pattern, I could change it to green, which means it has been run. So this is a user function. If you actually play the pattern, it will turn from red to green. So if you have passed 1 through 10, you can play the pattern and you'll be able to see that you've had progress and where you left off. And when you save this workspace, I'm going to click Save As. And
saving workspace.
Workspace file.
Please select a file name.
I'm going to say Replace it. If I exit the program, all the screens will go away. And go to the Start menu, Programs. Sturkits Automated System Solutions, CCQuilter. And our screen comes back up again.
Opening existing workspace.
And all the settings come back up just as they were before, including the past. Okay, so a couple of features on here is if you click this question mark, it'll turn dark green. Then you can click on other buttons and it'll give you an idea of what the buttons do. So on any screen you can get that function. Then you need, including the exit button. So you can't exit the program while in this mode. You have to turn off that help mode and then you can exit. Okay, so we've got a pattern up here. We want to play it. Well, the first thing you have to do is load the pattern into the hardware. You can either do that by clicking on the pattern and selecting load or double clicking it. I'm just going to hit load. And then we get a progress bar. And then we get, after the upload has been successful, we get this play bar where we can play the pattern. This is the speed of the pattern. Now most patterns, if you look here, the patterns always start at the top left. So the first thing this one's going to need to do is do a jump down to this point, which means it's going to ask you to prepare for the jump, which means nothing moving, and then continue. It'll move to this point, then it's going to ask you to turn on your stitch regulator and hit yes to continue. The Xbox 360 controller has buttons on it that you can use, and there are certain bumpers that are defined as yes and no answers. More of that is detailed out in the detailed users manual, which will be available shortly. So I'm going to hit play and see what this pattern looks like when it's playing. Okay, so
Ready to jump.
the first thing
Hit OK to continue.
user input box, which you can again change the size so that you can read it from afar if you need to. And it comes up with this timer. Timer, you can move it around. It's going to be a timer that gives you an idea of how long the pattern is running. So I'm going to hit ready to jump.
Start stitch regulator.
Moved.
Hit OK to continue.
Now I start the stitch regulator. I hit OK to continue. And if you watch the screen, you can see it's actually running the machine. Now this is a lot faster than the machine would actually run. You can change the machine speed here, and you'll see it change up there. But this again is a simulation. It says that right here, simulation box. And if I stop it at any time, and I use an arrow key to move it off pattern, I'm using one of the arrow keys on the keyboard. You notice this button down here becomes active. That's restore. If I have to move the machine off to change a bobbin or fix the thread, I can do that. At the same time, my timer button has stopped because it's no longer playing the pattern, so it's trying to give a realistic view of how long it takes to play the pattern. And I'm just removing these things around. But anytime you hit this emergency stop button, everything will stop, including the stepper motor power is relieved. Take it off, and you'll have to disconnect and connect the machine back up again to use it if you're using it in real hardware mode. But in this case, I've moved off pattern. If I hit play,
Off pattern.
it's going to ask me off pattern.
Continue.
You want to continue. I'm going to say cancel. So what I do from here is I want to go back to the point where I stop the play. And I simply hit this, and it moves the machine directly back to where it was when I hit the pause button or the stop button. And I can hit play again, and off it goes. So we're going to let this run to the end. And once here, my pattern stopped. I stop my stitch regulator. I can move the machine off to the right, change the bobbin, and then hit rewind. Now it also tells me the execution time. 25 seconds is probably not how long it's going to take to run this pattern. Most patterns take between 5 and 10 minutes to run across the machine, based on your machine settings and how you like your machine to run. So what I would do here is I would hit rewind before I load the next pattern, and it will move the machine all the way back to where it was to begin with. And then I can move my quill forward, load the next pattern, and run it. There are a couple of things here. There's a red button here. When you load a pattern, the user can specify the linear length that's safe for a bobbin run. My machine, which is generally 1600p, 571 inches is good. So if the pattern I've loaded is more than 571 inches, this light will illuminate. It will be bright red. And I know there's a problem with possibly running out of thread on the bobbin on this pass. It gives me the width and the height of the pattern that's currently loaded. And if I click on things like the patterns, that hides that patterns window. There are a few other options. When I do the manual moves using the keyboard key or the joystick on the Xbox 360 controller, I can change between fast, medium, and slow in manual mode. These are the speeds used when it's doing the jumps. If I double click, it brings up a window that I can manipulate to change the speeds for slow, medium, and fast. So I can set those at any time. If I double click on the background of the pattern being displayed, I can actually tell it what I want to show the pauses, show the jumps, show the coordinates, or show the thread. So if I leave the coordinates here, you'll see a bunch of points, and shut off the thread, I can change the thread color. I'm going to say, or shut off the points. You can see most of them are red. Why that is. I'm using an older program, that's why. So you can change the colors and change what's displayed, whether the thread itself in between points are displayed, whether the jumps are displayed, whether the pauses, if you have any point pauses where you want to set up a pause at one point where the machine will stop and then you get a very slow movement of the stitch going up and down, you can do that, and displaying coordinates. This is where you program in the safe bobbin length string. So I can edit this and make it 571. This is point pause speeds. And if you notice, the light went off, which means this pattern does not exceed 571 inches, linear inches. And if you look here, it's only 180.56 linear inches. So far we've seen quite a bit of this. The timer's shown up here in the main display. I'm going to save the workspace. It tells you what it's
saving workspace.
You always get
opening message box
that you can select stuff and copy and paste it if you want to. Clicking on
closing message box.
Bring it.
Opening toolbox.
This is a toolbox where you can change user settings, Xbox 360 settings. So
opening Xbox controller tests.
This is an Xbox 360 controller test. So if you have your wireless controller in there and an Xbox 360 connected, you can press the buttons and you'll see these buttons and different things turn it on and off and everything else on the screen. Right now there is no system.
Executing system tests. Opening stepper tests.
Implemented.
Displaying hardware information.
This is all the default settings in the hardware. If your hardware was connected, you can see all the different stepper speeds and things. And this setting you never want to change unless you're directed to by somebody from circuits. You can do
opening firmware update.
You can select the firmware, and then you can update it. So as we release new versions of the firmware, they have different features in it. You can download the new features. And there's a user customization. User customization forms are speech. This will speak. You can change it from verbose, none, speak everything, just a minimal amount. When there's player changes, it'll speak to you, and hardware. This way you can be away from the machine, not even have to look at it and hear what's going on. You can change the voice from female, male, neutral. Change the speed of the voice here. You can also change whether the forms are dockable, resizable, movable. So once you get them set the way you like them, you can disable all this and nobody can ever change them on you again. If you don't like that little pop-up progress bar that pops up, you can turn it off. You can also turn off the big timer and just use the timer on the main screen. Safe mode is a mode where the hardware still needs to be connected, but the stepper power is turned off completely during all the communications. So the hardware will work like it's got stepper motors attached to it, but will not drive the stepper motor. So that you can test out some of these features and functions with the hardware attached and not actually be moving the machine. So that's pretty much an example of everything that we've got here. I hope it's been educational, and I hope it's been showing you how easy this is to use. To get rid of the toolbox screen here, we just hit the toolbox again and it goes away.
Opening toolbox.
And that's it. Thank you very much.